On July 13th of 2015, we witnessed the demise of Sandra Bland. The news broadcasted her story, and they put up a police report that said that she was suicidal, and it also put up a mugshot of her that showed her looking deranged. But then we see her family and her friends posting pictures of her looking lively and happy and surrounded by friends, displaying her dignity, holding her head up high. This is not how Sandra Bland looked. This is not how she lived. This is how she lived and how she looked. We have witnessed a lot of wrongful arrests and murders of minorities through the years. The news find these stories and they decide to dig up everything about that person's personal life. But in the case of minorities, they dig up all of the negative things on that person's life. And when they cannot find the negative things, then they use the videos and mugshots of your arrest in order to portray you in a way that you are not supposed to be portrayed. Minorities being portrayed in a negative light has been a problem for years. This problem may still exist 10 years from now, but now it is time for us to make a change, to make necessary change in order to put this problem to an end, and we need to start with ourselves. In an article by Jeff Nisbet, first we can learn from the new research that quite clearly shows us we have a problem with subconscious racial bias. We need to acknowledge the reality and then talk about it openly with friends, families, and others. So, the first thing we need to do is address the problem. Now, the problem is that the news decides to portray us, minorities, in a negative light. This is a problem because it continues the already known stereotypes that we know about. And if this is able to continue, then we will not be able to live comfortably as a part of society. In a study by Seth Josie, it shows that Latinos are perceived as illegal immigrants, blacks as thugs, Native Americans as gamblers, and Asians as just nerds. This is not what those people's lives are surrounded by. They have other things and other characteristics that are more positive, that are more influential to everybody else in society. Not that they're thugs and they're moochers off for the welfare, or that they are gardeners or housers, and that they're only advancing technology. And this is allowed to continue because the news allow it and we allow it. And as long as we continue to allow the news to stereotype us, then the racial divide will also be able to continue. In an article by Horton, Price, and Brown, minorities, more specifically African Americans and Latino Americans, are the casualty of a media that perpetuates social stereotypes and ethnic homogeneity. Television continues to promote social stereotypes even in this age of multiculturalism and diversity. In 2016, we are still being portrayed the same way we were being portrayed in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And this is an era where people are saying racism is over. And it's obviously not, because we see it in the news. And the way we can stop this from being portrayed in the news is by starting with ourselves. And what I mean by starting with ourselves, I mean that we need to think about what the problem actually is in ourselves. From an article by Arizona State University, if we can understand why American race stereotypes take the particular forms they do, we may be able to find new ways of reducing racial prejudices and discrimination. Now, think about it like this. If you don't like the way you're being portrayed in the media, but yet you are still portraying yourself in a certain way that is furthering what they're saying, how are you helping the advancement of ending the racial divide in the news? Now, if you think and put your ego aside and you think about it, how do I want to be portrayed? How do I want people to see me? Do I want them to see me as an angry black woman like Sandra Bland? Or do I want to be seen as an intellectual black woman, a beautiful intellectual black woman? Now, Once we are able to identify that we have a problem within ourselves, then we can go out and talk to our families and friends and ask them the question, how do you want to be portrayed? What can you do in order to be portrayed this way? Because once we portray ourselves in a manner that we want to be portrayed in, and the majority begins to see this, then they're also going to see us in that manner. And once our family understands, then we can reach out to our community. And if the community understands, then maybe the whole entire city can understand. And once we all come together and see that this is happening everywhere. In a video on Sandra Bland's investigation, Gerald Primrose states that this is happening across the country. This happened to whites, this has happened to Latinos, and it has happened to Asians. We need to come together. If we all come together and stand strong together, we can get to the root of the problem. We are the people, and we need to take that authority to ourselves. What he is trying to say is that if we all come together, we can tackle the news stations. Once we tackle ourselves, we can go and tackle the real problem, which starts at the news stations and the news networks. So we have to start off small with the local news networks. If you go to the local news network in your community and you tell them, sit down face to face, and you tell them how this is making you feel, and they start to end that racial divide in their news. And then you can go even further by starting talking to ABC networks or Fox News networks or CNN maybe. But it all starts with us. And once we understand that it starts with us, and then we have to implement it into our families and friends, and then our communities, and then we all come together, we can be the beginning of the end of racism. Thank you.